Well, it's time to further my efforts to finish repairing and restoring this Penney stereo receiver, this MCS 2230 stereo receiver that you've already seen the video about, or if you haven't, you should go watch it right now. The last couple of parts of this restoration are going to consist of a couple of things, not necessarily in order of how entertaining they are to do. I'm going to clean the controls and the contacts. Going to make some proper speaker wire connectors so that I don't have to use that nasty old constantly wanting to short out cable that I was using to test things, so I can hook up some speakers to this thing. And putting the belt on the cassette player really doesn't seem like it's going to be a huge bundle of fun, so I've got this little belt pushing and pulling tool here to help me out. Hopefully that'll make things a great deal easier, and hopefully I won't have to take the cassette player too far apart to get it going again. Well, in order to get in there, I've got to take the back and the side panel off. So wish me luck. Now, normally speaking, when you find yourself using vice grips to repair your stereo, it means you're probably doing something wrong. And here you can see the insides of the beast, and oh, what a beast it is. There's the audio power amplifier at the back, power transformer. That's the cassette board on the bottom, the tuner board up top. Right next to that's the audio board, and tucked in underneath there are various other audio-related boards, like the source selector and the volume controls. And there's the tape deck itself, and it's not going to be a whole lot of fun to put a belt on that. Oh boy, well, this is just every bit as much fun as it looks like, being mindful of all these little wires and the screws that they put in the worst possible places. I'll tell you what, if I ever do figure out who made this thing, I'm going to have a word with the designer. But I got the motor separated there, and I've got the belt on the pulley, and so now what remains is to put that motor assembly back on the body of the cassette player, feed that belt around that pulley, maybe pray a little bit, put the small belt on there that's used for fast forward and rewind, and maybe a little more prayer, put this thing back together, hoping I don't pinch any little wires, hoping I can get all the stupid screws back in where they came from. I'll give you a hint, if you ever have to do this on your own, a magnetized screwdriver would be invaluable, although you'd have to be careful with it because you're working around tape heads and stuff. Anyway, now I've just got to try to mount that back to the body of the tape assembly and feed that belt over the motor pulley, and wish me luck. Well, there you have it. I think I want the past half hour of my life back. Maybe I'll write to Penney and see if they'll return it to me. Well, anyway, what we've got here, the way to do this, in case you're wondering, if you ever have to be so unfortunate as to do this on your own unit, the way to do it is to put it around that big flywheel down there first. It's going to fit pretty tight if you've got the right size belt. And then this motor is a separate assembly. Fasten that screw right there, and that lets you have the motor pivoted out. Then with your belt helper tool, carefully pull that belt up and over that pulley, and it needs to go on the back part right there, which you can just kind of see right there. And then you can lean it forward, being careful all the time to watch and make sure that your little belt does not pop off of that pulley, or you're going to have to do it all over again. Fasten these other two little screws. Make sure everything's in the right position. Try to rotate it through one full revolution if you can. And then there's one more screw that has to go back on down there. And then it's time to mount the tape deck back in the front of this thing, which isn't much fun because although the screws are accessible, you can hardly get to them. When you get done, you also have to put the little belt back on the counter pulley, which you can just kind of see back there. That's this belt that's hanging out over the end here. So let's see if I can do all that stuff. Don't I just hope. Okay, well, it's not all the way back together, but it's back together far enough for what should be an effective test. So let's put it in tape mode. Fast forwards. So that's working good. Let's see how the playback speed is. Well, that's definitely an improvement over what it was, because it was so bad that the flabby old belt wouldn't even stay on that flywheel. So now all I have to do is put all the trim back together, put in a few more tape deck screws, and that crowbar, you know, again, usually if you're using a crowbar in your stereo repair, you're doing something wrong, but it's actually supporting the framework of the unit since the side panel is off. I got to get something to support that turntable or it might fall completely off of there. So I got to get it back together now. Now, for those last two screws that go in, they go into some places that are kind of difficult to get to. And unfortunately, it seems like the Keykeeper's search magnet is a former search magnet. It's really not very strong, certainly not strong enough to magnetize a screwdriver. So I've got the next best idea. Here's a long screwdriver. Here's another good stereo repair tool, duct tape. I'll show you what I'm going to do about it. There we go. I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's just enough duct tape wrapped around the screw head to hold it in place while I bring it into its final position. And then, when I pull the screwdriver away, the duct tape will stay with it and not on the screw. So it should be a win-win situation. Let's see. Oh yeah, it's working great. You can't really see it, but I'm getting that screw to go in there. And then I'll have to do the one last one that's like that. Then I can put the whole rest of the stereo back together, and won't that just be spiffy? Now the last one has to go back in there just a little bit underneath that circuit board, which would be fun were it not for my duct tape. Now somebody had asked me the other day on the comments on the first video about this stereo what one of the songs was I played on the record. Well, there were two songs that I played. One of them was the Wabash Cannonball, that was the first one, and the second one was actually Hey Good Lookin', written by Hank Williams and performed by Danny Davis and the Nashville Brass on their Movin' On album. So hopefully that answers that person's question. Now for the fun part. I had mentioned that this is a partial logic cassette player, in that it's manually operated, but it's capable of skipping songs automatically. So the way this works is you press play, and then you specify how many songs you want to skip, and then you hit fast forward. And as it passes songs, you'll notice the LED moves down a notch. Now it takes a while because it's a tape, but eventually it will get there. It's just past one song. Now there's just one left to skip. You'll see the fast forward button kicks out. Anyway, by default it skips just one song, which you can do at any time. You can also skip backwards. So if you made a mistake and want to change your mind, you can just skip backwards a song too. Sometimes you might have to actuate it twice. You can actually faintly hear, because the playhead has to maintain contact with the tape for the system to know when silence is encountered. So you can hear the high-pitched noise of it winding through the tape very quickly. But there you go, that's the restoration of the J.C. Penney MCS 2230 stereo system. Thank you for watching.